Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Surrey Tennis Talks. We've got a jam-packed schedule of things to discuss today. So with us as always is Justin Shering.
Hey guys.
And we are going to talk about all things county training. We're going to talk about British success over the last week or so, as well as touch on the US Open, men's and women's finals, as well as how Joe, our very own Joe, got on at the event. So Justin, we are obviously seeing the return of county training, a very exciting return for Surrey. Do you want to take us through what we can expect in terms of the new or the reintroduction of county training?
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. Hey, everybody. Like we've been saying for a couple of weeks, county training is back. We've secured all the venues. So just a quick, big, fantastic shout out to our indoor venues who have got themselves sorted in these tricky times, but we try not to, we look after business, but we try not to, doom and gloom too much about these tricky times. But county training's back indoors, which is great. We want to say a big thank you to Sutton Tennis Academy for looking after us. They'll be looking after our 8s, 9s and our 14s, those age groups on weekends. And big shout out and thank you to Reed's Tennis School. They've also been fantastic. They're going to be looking after our 11s and 12s age groups. And huge thanks to David Lloyd Purley, who are going to be looking after 16 of Surrey's finest under 10s boys and girls. So that'll just leave the under 18s age groups, which we'll pick up with after half term. But the dates are going to be somewhere on this screen. Right here for you to look at, make a note of, depending on what's relevant for you. But yeah, we're back and we're raring to go weekend of the 3rd and 4th of October. So looking forward to that.
Very, very exciting. So Justin, tell us, why was it so important to get county training back? Obviously, it was a huge part of our calendar in the last couple of years. So why was it so important to get the sessions going again?
Well, I think especially in the Southeast, but the UK, countrywide, county training is where, the first sort of layer of all your top club players all come together. They're your more passionate, more committed young players that are really saying tennis is me. I identify with tennis. I want to be with other young players that also do the same. So it's really important to get them all together so that they feel really part of something special. And Surrey tennis is very special. And then when you put in the mix all of our top coaches, so a big shout out to them who have all, been on hold and now come straight back in, no quibbles. They want to get started. So yeah, it just gives the whole junior tennis landscape a real buzz and a real vibe. And we're going to run training up until Christmas, relook at all the players, re-engage with them all, get them buzzing. And then we'll start again in January for a 12-week term, leading up to, hopefully, fingers crossed, all the county cups, which will happen, we all hope, next year. So very important across the country that county tennis gets going again, but particularly in Surrey.
Definitely. And for those who don't perhaps know how county training works in terms of the structure of it, why, obviously it's hugely popular with the players, the coaches love it. It's, as you said just now, it's a fantastic vibe. So what makes these sessions so special for the players?
Yeah, well, they just play lots of sparring, lots of points, lots of hitting. Really, the coaches kind of just blend into the background and just let the players go to war, really. That's how you get good, just by playing other good players and battling singles and doubles. And, generally we look at the rankings because I think it's fair that players select themselves, i.e. they do it on the court. My job as the performance manager is to look at the rankings each week and go, oh, that player deserves to be in there. That player should be in there. And, everyone feels that it's fair, it's transparent. And it's not just because a certain coach works with a player or feels they could be quite good. The nice thing is as well, if you're under 8, under 7, under 6, and you want to get involved, or not that you might know you want to get involved, but your parents, you're looking on now as a parent of a talented 6, 7-year-old, we do have something called our welcome days, which do what they say on the tin. They welcome young players into the Surrey fold. And we'll be running those days at the end of autumn. Normally we had one big day massive day, 60, 70 players all come in and they get a big buzz and all go away happy, and we select a few players for county training. But obviously those sort of numbers are long gone. 60, 70 indoors is not really going to happen for a while. So we'll get players in from the north and south, east and west of the county on their own days, and we'll have a look at all these great, enthusiastic and talented 7, 6, 7, 8-year-olds and get them involved in training from January. So I'm hoping that we've got all the bases covered and we'll be raring to go.
So we now move on to Surrey success. So the Surrey players who have had some success in the last week or so. So Justin, do you want to read out a couple of players that had standout results or standout performances?
Well, yeah, special mention. I mean, last week we talked about a few of our Surrey stars that done well. Arthur Ferry, Jodie Burridge, Lily Miyazaki, and Alistair Gray. A few players that we've just started to get to know. So I'd like to keep our audience up to speed with how they're doing. And Jodie just continued her great run, reaching the final of an ITF $25,000 tournament in Portugal. Made the final, runner-up. So it's just tremendous. So I'm hoping every week better let you know how these people that these players that came into your lives in the summer, how they're doing, so we don't lose touch with them. And also big shout out to Surrey's Hannah Klugman, who won the Fred Perry championships 14 and under. So I know from previous years she gets, I think she may have won this before. I think she won it before, and you get a wonderful, wonderful sponsorship package with Fred Perry. So, lovely clothing. It's quite trendy as well. And if you're my age, it's pretty retro as well. Back in the day, we were all wearing Fred Perry, but now it's come back into proper fashion again. I think it was one of Andy Murray's first ever sponsors.
Yeah, it was.
Hannah is walking in great footsteps or wearing great shirts, in continuing that. Big shout out as well to great club, great Surrey club. One week we're going to have to get the mighty Carl Stowell, head coach over at Sutton Tennis and Squash, in to have a chat, because his energy and enthusiasm and organisation will just blow you away. But they are the National Premier League ladies champions for the year. So well done. Wonderful to have a Surrey team be national champions, isn't it, Lewis? I mean,
yeah.
You're in charge of competitions. You've done competitions for years, and it's just such a buzz for the players to do that. But again, big shout out to Lily. Look at Lily. She's 1 minute, she's Lily Miyazaki. She's working for herself in her own individual business and winning all those matches. And then she's coming back to her club and supporting her club. And likewise with Emily Appleton. Great job. You heard about her during the summer doing so well at British Tours and the UK Pro Series. Tash Starling, who you may not have heard about. I think she's got a proper job these days, but she's also, again, it just shows, the varied life of a tennis club. And you've got aspiring pros, you've got people who've got proper jobs, day jobs, that just still love their tennis, have played since they were juniors, and they've got an awful lot to offer. And then what's great in the team as well, you've got a young player, sort of 16, 17-year-old, Sally Pethybridge. She's the under-18 national doubles champion. And she's also in the team, but of course she plays at the bottom. She gets to learn from these players on her doorstep. So, they talk a lot about what's great about Spanish tennis and French tennis. And it's the club tennis that goes on, and the team tennis and that environment. And some of you get some great pros just playing in your local teams over in Spain. I mean, the players that they get out generally because it's in their culture. So again, well done, Sutton Tennis and Squash. It's a great culture to have over there. They've had it for years. And the more Surrey clubs can follow that, the better. And of course, our very own Joe Salisbury, as you said, got to the US Open semi-finals, which is better than last year. So one better than last year. Incredibly well done to him. We're lucky enough, watched all his matches and spoke to Joe after the match. And believe it or not, he's tough on himself. He wanted to do better. Didn't think they performed to their best. Had a great quarterfinal, and it looked like they were going to peak and sort of play a better semi and then go and blow them away in the final, but didn't quite make it. But playing well, and he heads off to the clay and heads off to the French, hopefully with a lot of confidence. So well done, Surrey players, young and old. You're flying the flag. Great. Thanks, guys.
You're right. It's a fantastic to see such consistent success for our Surrey players. I think just briefly touching on the Fred Perry Championships, I think we had Isabel Lacey who won it last year. Hannah, now at her young age, winning it is a hell of an achievement. And then just touching on the Sutton Tennis and Squash Club, obviously the National Premier League fields some seriously good players in that. I think what they've done consistently well is be able to attract some top level players. And as you said, you've got a team there with players still playing on the tour. You've got Natasha Starling, as you said, used to play tennis, county. Emily Appleton still does. And in fact, that whole team has represented Surrey Women's at some point or another. And I think maybe even this year, or next year rather, perhaps that might even make up the whole team, which is great. So I think as a club, Sutton especially have had consistent success. And it's just fantastic to see our clubs out there representing us. And I think St George's Hill also reached the final of the men's.
They did, yeah.
Which is still a great achievement, again, with the sort of players, the calibre of players playing, it's just so high. So to have almost men's and women's champion is something we can definitely be proud of.
Yeah, well done. Well done, both our clubs. Great job. Now, Lewis, have you got has anybody emailed you any questions this week? Anything for me on the tennis front? Nothing about plumbing or electrics. No good with those.
So we are introducing a series, a mini series within this series, which is focused on asking Justin questions about technique. Perhaps there's question on journey through the game. Perhaps it's question on traveling. We want to encourage everyone watching this, whether it's a local club player, a performance youth player, a player parent, anyone who has any questions for Justin, we'd love you to submit. So at the end of this video, I'll put obviously our contact details up there. Below in the description, you'll also see a link to submit a question. And going forward in the next couple of weeks and beyond, we will answer your questions. You can speak, not speak directly with Justin, but through the power of a good question. And I think it'll be quite exciting. So definitely get those in. What sort of questions are you hoping for, Justin? Is there anything that you would love to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the questions that tend to come up time and time again are all about dealing with failure, dealing with the doom and gloom of losing, how to stay positive. And what was interesting this week, Lewis, is that both US Open finals, ladies first and the men's, I mean, they were so full of drama. But if you just look beneath the drama, you see a lot of the things that are typical in tennis deep down at any age group. I mean, Azarenka, her story is fantastic, comes back from the wilderness, from dealing with her personal life, comes back and just pretty much annihilates the field, gets to the final against another very, very determined young lady, Naomi Osaka, and destroys her in the first set, 6-1. And a lot of the time, I think when you hear parents, they talk to me in disbelief that their player wins the first set, and then guess what? They go on to lose the match, or they go on to lose the second. And I look at them like, well, isn't that kind of the nature of the scoring system and the nature of sport? Is that if I've lost one, I'm going to probably try and fight quite hard to win the next one. We talk about that a little bit, but what we don't talk about is the burden of winning one. The burden. At the beginning, no one has anything to lose. If you win a set 6-1, not only do you have something to lose now, but you have an extra burden because you won it so easily. And because you try and put yourself subconsciously at times in the minds of people, it's inevitable that you put yourself in the minds of coaches, junior players put themselves in the minds of parents, or any spectator. Goodness me, forget the fact that US Open final, millions of people are watching around the world. Azarenka sits there, having won the first set, 6-1, in 20 odd minutes, thinking, well, trying to stay in the present, but a lot of her brain is going, holy moly, don't want to lose this from here, Victoria. Well, imagine this. And you hear a lot of the great, athletes that have gone through a lot of sports psych training or just experienced themselves. They just say, look, forget that set, put it away, put it to one side. I don't want to carry it around with me. And I think it's a bit like a play. If you can imagine carrying a rucksack around with you, and as the scoring works either way, you're either putting rocks in your backpack, or you're taking rocks out. And in a nice way, the balance is you sit down at 6-1 and you go, wow, that's fantastic. But in a way, you kind of wish that you'd won it 6-4 or 6-3, because then there's not such an impending, expectation from the whole world. And then, of course, she goes 2-love up, and you're thinking, wow, this match is going to be over. It could get embarrassing. And she has points for 3-love. And then Osaka, she's not done yet, because she's, as anybody who watched the US Open, she came out with her masks on every match. All credit to her. She's got a deep belief in Black Lives Matter. And that was, I don't know how powerful it was in helping her to fight back. I mean, she put it down to just saying, look, I didn't want to be embarrassed out here. I just decided to change my attitude. So, changing your attitude is a choice. She got back on it, maybe at the same time where Azarenka's thinking, gee, what if I lose from here?
Yeah.
But from being 8-1 up effectively to then going on to lose the match, and for Osaka to win in the fashion that she then did, because she then dominated the final set. It just shows what a topsy-turvy game this is, mentally up and down, swings and roundabouts, whatever analogies you want to use. I would say to all juniors and all players, get used to it. Don't be surprised by it. It goes with the territory, and that's what we love about tennis. That's what we love about sport.
And you're right. And that, I mean, this is happening at the very top of the game. So imagine you're sort of your lower level players, or relatively speaking, it's just as hard for them, if not harder, because they've not had the level of training that these top professionals have. So it's something, as you said, that affects everyone. And well, I mean, look at the men's. You had Zverev 2 sets up, exactly the same scenario. And you always feel, and I always find it amazing in the men's game, how often players come back from 2 sets down. It's almost like as soon as you go 2 sets down, because so many people before have done it, you almost feel like there is a flicker of hope. There is a flicker of opportunity. And it's incredible. You look at it, all Zverev had to do was just close out one of those sets, and he's a Grand Slam champion. But he couldn't do it,
Well, and what's interesting is as well, I was telling the players on court last night that he threw in the 5th set for anyone who stayed up till 1:30 in the morning. I'm yet to meet anybody who did. And that's why probably I'm still tired. But Zverev threw in a 68-mile-an-hour second serve.
Yeah.
Which I was telling some of our, 14, 15-year-old boys on court that they probably do that. That would be a slow serve for them in training. So it just shows how human Zverev is. But everything that team did to come back is also human. The human spirit, the never say die. And I always say, and listen, I don't think I'm the world's greatest technical coach or tactical coach or strategic coach and physical coach, no way. But something which I really believe in is the character and the person that's holding the racket, because that's all they're doing. The racket is a representation eventually, ultimately, of who the person is. So team sat down at 2-love and he's gone, what are you going to do? What we're going to do here? We're going to fight like a dog. We're going to never give up. And it doesn't matter what's thrown at him. He still went for it. And to be fair to Zverev, he could have bailed again. You go to 5 and he's going, well, I'm done. You topsy-turvy 5th set, you get to the tie break. No one's done. They were all up and they were all, momentum was all over the place. But by hook or by crook, they try and stay in the present and do their very best. Now, I feel as if I could be talking about an under-9 match that I witnessed at the weekend with both those matches. So really, it's just a message to all players, all parents. Listen, you pick up a racket, you start competing. This goes with the territory. You're going to have emotions are going to be all over the place. So get used to it. Understand, accept that winning from a desperate position is possible, and losing from a virtually impossible position is also possible. So, yeah, just be ready and accept and enjoy. And at the end of the match, shake hands or touch rackets and move on to the next one with the lessons that you've learned. But boy, it was a thrilling weekend, Lewis.
It certainly was. And there you go, to our audience. That's a sample of the sort of answers that we would like to give to any of your questions. So as we mentioned, please do send those in. Just touching, as you said, on the epic weekend at the US Open. Do you think now that seeing Osaka win the women's and team winning the men's, is this a new era really coming to the top now? I know Naomi's won 2 slams, I think, before that, but are you sensing now a real shift in sort of the next generation becoming the dominant force in the game?
Well, sooner or later it's got to happen. And, you know, Serena's been an amazing ambassador for women's tennis. But you can sort of see the last few slams, you can just sort of see that either the pressure's getting to her or these younger players are finally taking advantage of the fact that she might be slowing down a step. But women's tennis is just so ridiculously competitive at the moment. So many great players, from Ons Jabeur, you know, to Vekic can do something, Mladenovic can do something, and she's known as a doubles player. You've got, I mean, you go deep through the drawer and you can just see name after name after name, and you think, well, they could do something. If anyone ever likes to, at the Grand Slams, do like a fantasy football, you can do the tennis for free, dream team, and you get 100 million to spend on your players, and it's really fun. Is it, you look down and you go, well, wow, I'll take them because they're only worth 4 million, but they've probably got a chance of winning. Whereas, you know, there was a time in the old days where, you know, Serena was nailed on, and who else are you going to go for? No one else. Yeah. But it's incredibly exciting. And I just hope that on the men's side, that Zverev and team now show the other players, you know, Chorich coming through, you know, he had a great tournament. And these younger guys, I mean, you've got Sinner, please look out for Sinner, fantastic player. Great young player last night, took out Wawrinka at Rome, Musetti.
Yeah, first ever ATP win, I believe.
That's right. Not bad against Grand Slam champ Stan Wawrinka.
And he bageled him.
Surrey's Jack Draper beat Musetti at Wimbledon the year that he made the final. So, yeah, I mean, it's about belief. And as soon as 1 or 2 players get close, the rest behind think, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. So, and then it's performing. You've got to better perform on the biggest stage. So it's just wonderful. I think next few years are going to be exciting, yeah.
I hope so. And I think especially from a women's perspective, I remember reading an article, I think it was from Annabelle Croft, who said that she feels that because there were so many different winners of Grand Slams constantly, that it suffered the women's game, because no one was able to really become fans of certain players, because they would suddenly be there, then they wouldn't, and then you don't hear from them for another year, and then they're back at the top. And that sort of topsy-turvy nature of the women's game is argued to be at its detriment, because there's no consistent players. So sort of, I suppose I hope that it's obviously great that it's so competitive, but it would also be nice to see some really regular rivalries, perhaps, you know, a more of a consistent top 10, you know, where you see these rivals coming up. And it seems like Naomi's here to stay by the looks of it. Yeah. But as you say, it doesn't look like it's going to get any less competitive. So perhaps the topsy-turvy nature will be...
Well, let's see what happens. You know, let's see where we are in a year's time, 18 months' time, when tennis hopefully has got back to normal and everyone's playing the circuit, everyone's training properly, everyone's traveling the world again. And you know, we'll see, because there were a lot of players missing. But I hope it doesn't go down as the tainted US Open, because it was anything but. Great matches, very strange environments, very strange. You know, and we didn't even talk about Djokovic, but that's for next time.
Yeah.
You know, Djokovic maybe for next time, but wasn't that a turn up for the books? Because I think, you know, he was pretty much nailed on, although Karina Buster might say otherwise.
Yeah, very true. And
we don't need to go there this week.
No, I think that's a whole can of worms. Just lastly on the US Open and the fact it went ahead with no crowd, how do you think they did?
Well, from, again, being on the inside with Joe Salisbury, who was there, you know, he said it was meticulous, and they were really all over it. They were very, very tight. I mean, I don't know if anyone saw, but at one stage during Joe and Rajiv's quarterfinal, Rajiv, they were at the opposite end, at the other end, either side, of the bench, and they had the single seats, and they were told that they were too close. Karaji went to get a little bit nearer to Joe to talk to him, and he was told quite firmly to get back in his seat again.
Wow.
And these are guys that are tested almost daily.
Yeah.
Totally safe, and obviously come into close contact with each other when they're playing. But I think just as important as obviously being safe and doing your testing and keeping your distance is just the visual to the rest of the world, to make sure that the world feels confident about playing tennis. So it's no good, the casual fan turning on the television and say, well, why are those guys sitting next to each other? They might know that they get tested every day, and they've got special measures. They're in elite bubbles, sporting bubble. They might know that. They just think, well, tennis doesn't look very safe. So as important for any other reason, obviously to keep the players and the fans and officials, not the fans, but the officials safe, is to just make sure that tennis is giving the right message all the time. Yeah. And I think that's where we've benefited. A lot of players, a lot of people are coming to tennis. Tennis clubs are full. Tennis clubs are busy. So I'm so happy US Open went ahead because it keeps the momentum rolling. We can all talk about Zverev and Thiem and Osaka and Azarenka. We need to talk about these things. So especially now that the football season's upon us and, everyone starts to turn their attention back towards the Premier League. And that, Lewis, is why I'm wearing my red shirt today.
I hadn't quite teed you up yet there, so I knew that you'd try and slip that in somewhere.
Yeah, just as a big up to, not, don't forget I'm a massive Liverpool fan, and I just hope they go well with their, the campaign this season as the current reigning, defending champions of England.
Well, you've suffered long enough without a win, mate. So I think we'll let you have it this season.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, well, look, I think what we would probably like to do over the next week or so is turn our attention to the clay court season, among other things. We'll obviously discuss where British players are playing, the French Open as well. And yeah, is there anything else the next couple of weeks, Justin, you think we're gonna focus on?
No, I think it's just now turns to the clay, which is the oddest thing ever, isn't it? Normally you're done with the clay, grass, hard, indoor, and so it's going to be strange for the players, but they'll be happy to get back out there again. Again, I know, Joe was in Italy for the Rome and then coming back and then popping off to Hamburg to get some extra clay court practice and then off to Roland Garros. So let's just see how many players get through injury free because they're not getting the same amounts of rest they would have normally got, not getting the same sort of preparation and moving surfaces quite so quickly, moving from a ball being, chest height to having a ball sort of above your shoulder height without too much preparation. They wear different shoes, different surfaces. Yeah. So let's see who gets through this few weeks. Anyway, and I hope you all enjoy the tennis. And so we'll be ready to chat a little bit about that next week, Lewis.
Definitely. And I think with so many artificial clay courts popping up in Britain, I think some clay analysis would be quite fun. So as I mentioned a moment ago, please do submit your questions in. As I said, in the bio below will be a bit of a explanation on how to do that. We want to answer your questions. And we will look forward to seeing you next week. So it's thank you from me, thank you from Justin, and we'll see you all soon.
Very good. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.